Welcome back to Ion Foxborough. I'm Chris Mason here with Mark Daniels. It is Thursday afternoon. Seahawks week is upon us. Drake Maye will not be starting in that game. Jacoby Brissett will be. But my guy Mark Daniels over here talked to Drake about what his first week was like as a backup, what the whole process is, and how the Patriots are handling him. Mark, you want to let the good people know what you learned today?
Yeah, so Drake May is essentially a sponge, Chris. For him, this season is all about learning and taking in everything. And when I mean everything, I'm talking about what he's seeing and hearing on the sidelines, his practice reps as a scout team quarterback, and especially in the meetings with Jacoby Brissett. So today when I talked to him, I should say this. First, we talked to Alex Van Pelt this morning, and I asked Alex about, what he wanted Drake to sort of take away from being on the sideline. And Alex said, he needs to pay attention to Jacoby Brissett. And Alex Van Pelt brought up, Thursday morning as an example. The Patriots had a team meeting, and he's like, Jacoby asks a lot of good questions, and it's on Drake to sort of like just soak it up and hear what Jacoby's asking and why he's asking and the answers I'm giving. So in the locker room, I asked Drake, just like, what's an example of something you heard this morning from Jacoby that sort of piqued your interest? And he's just said it's Jacoby wants to know everything for every situation. So the example he gave me was like, say the Patriots call, across the 50-yard line and the Patriots are in a fourth down situation. They're not necessarily going to kick a field goal. What Gerard Mayo and Alex Van Pelt told the group was, hey, we might start going for it on fourth down. And I thought that was really interesting. But Jacoby wanted to know, like, what play call, if it was like third and medium or fourth and medium, would Alex Van Pelt like to run? And then Jacoby sort of shot back, well, this is the play call I would like to run. And really, Jacoby gave his input on what he thought was the best play call for this certain situation. And I said third and medium at first because Drake also mentioned that like, today Jacoby was talking about certain third down plays that he liked. And for Drake, it got him thinking like, all right, he's looking at this as this is what Seattle defense does. Here's what Jacoby, a veteran, thinks will be a good play call. So I thought that was fascinating. Another part of this was on Sunday, Chris. Drake Maye stood in the sideline with an earpiece in, and he heard everything going back and forth from Alex Van Pelt to Jacoby Brissett. And what Drake Maye did, as soon as he heard the play call, he imagined himself in the huddle, imagined himself behind center, and imagined, hey, this is what I would do in this situation from sort of his vantage point. He called it, quote, playing the game on the sidelines. He said it's one of the biggest things for him this year. And after every series, he would actually talk with Jacoby Brissett about certain things he saw. And like Jacoby actually welcomes his input too. He's like, I have a different vantage point standing on the sideline than Jacoby does. So if I saw something I thought could help him, so it was just this ongoing dialogue between the two quarterbacks. And then another thing is the scout team quarterback reps. Say this, I found this really interesting from CBS sideline reporter Evan Washburn. He reported this past week that Drake Maye last week received 30% first team reps. Fascinating, right? So the Patriots are giving him some reps against, the scout team and operating as a starting quarterback, which is good. But 70% of the time, that means he's a scout team quarterback. And for those who don't know, that means you're running with offensive backups and you're running plays that your opponent will run against your starting defense. So the entire goal is to prepare the starting defense for Sunday. So Drake just said, that's a big thing for him because he actually gets to like, put it on the field, right? Those are the only reps. And we've talked about this all summer long. How do you really develop a quarterback when you're game planning? Well, Drake's taking it serious, these plays that he like for example, this weekend he's running plays the Seattle Seahawks will run, or they think that they'll run. And he just said, it's a great opportunity for me to go out there and make some plays. At the same time, I'm trying to balance the aspect of trying to get ready to play the game as a backup. But, basically it's an opportunity for him to throw and show off his arm strength and all that stuff. So he's staying engaged, he's locked in, and he's trying to soak it up. I found it fascinating.
It's kind of funny. The sideline stuff when you were talking about it reminded me a little of Tristan Casas and his mental swings that he'd been taking when he was injured. So maybe you can
Yeah.
link those two up and see a meeting of the minds there. But I think this is the right way to handle him. I really think listening to the Patriots, they clearly have a developmental plan for him. They're sticking to it. I think it makes a ton of sense. We've talked about all the reasons that like it makes sense to sit Drake to start this season to begin with. I still think the offensive line is pretty unsettled where Gerard Mayo's taken a little bit of a victory lap this week about the offensive line because they ran the ball really well and like impressively, deservedly so in the run game. But I don't think anyone was really crushing them for their run blocking ability. It was the pass blocking, and that was still an issue where I think Jacoby got hit 7 times in the game. He was under pressure a lot.
Yeah,
Maybe I don't. I'm not going to say they don't win that game if Drake May is quarterback. There's a good chance they don't because he's just, so young. He's under pressure. Like, I don't know that he would have even run for a few of the first downs that Jacoby did in that game. So I think you're kind of getting the best of both worlds here, where Brissett is back there behind the offensive line. Like, it's going to take some hits. It's going to keep moving forward. And like, while you're dealing with that, you have Drake, who's just, sponging it up on the sideline, taking his mental reps and, learning more. It's easy to forget how young he is. He just turned 22 years old. He's one of the youngest quarterbacks in the draft. I think the seasoning is going to really pay off long term.
I agree. He's the youngest player on the Patriots, and I agree. I also agree with you. Listen, I don't know if they actually win with Drake May in Cincinnati. Like Jacoby Brissett bailed the Patriots offensive line out several times with his legs. He had a nice third down pass too, where he avoided a pass rush and hit. I think it was Pop Douglas for a first
Mhm.
down conversion. But like he had sort of the answers to the test, and that's something Alex Van Pelt's talked a lot, or and even Gerard Mayo. Hey, when the plane's going down, Jacoby knows how to lift that, tip of the nose or tip of the plane up, essentially. We saw that a ton, and I liked what I heard from Drake today. He said something along the lines of like, for you, I feel like I'm a smart kid and I pick things up well. That's good. That's good, man. He has a really good veteran, and I say really good as like, Jacoby Brissett does things the right way. He works hard. He's a good listener. He's a good note taker. Like he sets a good example for the number three overall pick. And at the end of the day, like the Patriots need this guy to hit, Chris. Like I've said this before. Drake May doesn't develop and doesn't become the player they think he is, it could cost Gerard Mayo his job.
It cost Gerard Mayo's job. It could cost Elliott Wolf his job. It could cost Mac Breaux his job. There's a lot of jobs on the line with Drake May and linked to him. Let's turn the page to Seattle, though. So Seahawks are coming in Sunday afternoon. Mark usually does 5 things to watch every weekend. I think we're going to go rapid fire and go through them and try and answer some of these questions.
Yeah, let's start off number one. My number one question. Can Ramondre Stevenson do it again? Patriots ran for 170 yards. That was because Ramondre Stevenson's 120 yards. But Chris, they're going up against a defense that limited the Denver Broncos to 99 total rushing yards last weekend. Broncos split their carries between Jaleel McLaughlin and Javonte Williams. They averaged 2.7 and 2.9 yards per carry. Can Ramondre Stevenson in the Pats run game do it again?
I don't believe so. I think it's going to be really hard to replicate that performance to begin with. But also now there's tape out there on them. And one thing that I think we saw watching this game last week play out is Leighton Robinson's a really, really good run blocker. And there are times where they would put Caden Wallace, as a jumbo tight end on the other side and run weak behind Mike Onwenu and Leighton Robinson. And that created mismatches. I think there's film out there now, and I think teams are going to learn that the Patriots want to run to the right side no matter what the alignment is. I think they want to run behind those two guys a lot. So I don't think that they'll replicate the very, very good run game from last week.
I agree. I mean, Gerard Mayo's announced it to everyone in the NFL, hey, we're going to run the ball. That's fine. They're going up against a tough defense. And under their new coach in Seattle, they're essentially running a version of the Ravens defense, which is really, historically, Ravens have had a really good defense. I wouldn't be surprised if they stacked the box and made life tough for Ramondre. But my second question, it's sort of similar. Can the Patriots defensive line do it again? I mean, in Cincinnati, it helped that the Pats were ahead, but the Bengals only ran for 70 total rushing yards, and Joe Burrow was sacked 3 times, hit seven. I thought it was impressive, being without Christian Barmore and Matthew Judon. So you're going up against the Seattle Seahawks team where you really have to stop the run. Kenneth Walker ran for 103 yards, averaged 5.3 yards per carry. Geno Smith, not the best quarterback in the world, but he ran for 30 yards and also scored a rushing touchdown. So Chris, can the Pats defensive line do it again?
Yes, I think they can. I think they're very talented. My only concern with them really is depth. But right now, everyone's healthy. Devon Gottschalk's healthy, Jawan Bentley's healthy, Jelani Tavai is healthy, Anthony Jennings is healthy. Like these cornerstones in stopping the run are all good to go. I think the Patriots will have a good game plan, and I do think they'll slow down Seattle's rushing attack.
I agree. Kenneth Walker is better than Zach Moss, but Joe Burrow is better than Geno Smith. So I think the Pats have a good run defense and a good defensive line. That's going to be a strength this season. But another question I have will be about the Pats secondary versus the Seahawks. So I thought they were a little lucky in Cincinnati, right? T. Higgins was out with a hamstring injury. Jamar Chase played 84% of the snaps, just frankly looked a little limited after missing camp. But on Sunday, the Pats will face DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, Jackson Smith, and Jigba. So my question here. For the Patriots cornerbacks, do they match up well against this unit?
I think they will. I think they'll hang well, and I think some of that is also going to have to do with who's delivering them the ball, where they were lucky last week in Seattle's wideouts kind of being all over the place with that stuff. they still were going against Joe Burrow, and they were able to shut that down. They were able to make life really confusing for him. I think they'll be able to do the same to Geno Smith, who is a fine quarterback, but ultimately, I think that there's going to be some confusing looks, and I think the secondary is going to hang.
Now, we talked about the offensive line a little bit. My next question is about them. Rookie Bo Nix had a tough time against Seattle. He was intercepted twice, sacked twice, hit an additional 8 times. So essentially, the Patriots' offensive line, it's not going to get much easier for you. We know City So is going to be out with an ankle injury. We know Vidarian Lowe will likely start at left tackle and plays Achukwu Okorafor. But Chris, do you see them improving off their week one performance against a probably tougher defensive line against the Seattle Seahawks?
I don't. I don't see them improving. I think that you might see a similar like quarterback hit type thing where it could be in the like 7 to 10 range. But I think they're going to have to pass more in this game, and I think that's going to lead to more pressure opportunities for Seattle. Like everything broke their way in Cincinnati, where you get ahead 10-0 relatively early, you stay ahead for the whole game, and you're able to run and dictate the tempo. I think that's easier said than done on a week in, week out basis. I think Seattle knows what they want to do. I think they're going to make life tough on them. So I think there's going to be a lot more passing in this game, and because of that, I think you're going to see more pressure.
I think that the Seahawks clearly have a better defense than the Bengals, and that is going to make life harder on the Patriots. And the key for them will be just improving really every week. Like the questions we have about the offensive line, it's not going to go away. Every week they're going to have to prove themselves. And like, hey, they're going to start a guy who's on the practice squad at left guard. They're going to start someone relatively inexperienced, Vidarian Lowe, in left tackle. And if these players want us to shut up and Drake Maye wants to continue to take a victory lap, well, they're going to have to prove it against the Seattle Seahawks, but I don't think this matchup is in their favor at all. But another matchup that probably isn't in the Patriots' favor comes down for me to like the receivers. So last week, this will be a trivia question one day, right? Gerard Mayo's first win. Who's the Patriots' leading receiver? Well, the answer is tight end Austin Hooper with 31 yards. Their leading receiver for targets and receptions, KJ Osborne, 6 targets, 3 receptions for 21 yards. The Patriots didn't have a single receiver eclipse 30 yards or hit 30 yards. They didn't have a single receiver have more than 3 catches. It was sort of an ugly day for the passing game, and obviously it broke the way it did for the Patriots. They played ahead, they ran the ball, the defense, the special teams caused turnovers. So my fifth question, sort of my fifth things to watch, will be the Patriots receivers versus Seattle DBs. Like Chris, can the Patriots receivers actually show something more? Can the Patriots offense show they're more than just a run heavy offense?
I think they can. I mean, because the bar is very, very low right now, as you just read those stats off, right? Like, where else can you go but up? But there's a couple guys there where I think Pop Douglas is going to have a bigger game where he had 2 catches for, I don't know, it was 12 yards. It wasn't a lot. But I think that he is still the best receiver on the roster. I think he's going to find a way to get open. And as Jacoby Brissett needs to start throwing the ball more, I think Pop is going to become his best friend, where he just finds a way to get open. He's so shifty in a way that nobody else on the roster really is. Um, and then I think Jalen Polk is going to be a good player too. I think it's one of those things that might take a little time, but I think, he got his first taste last week, didn't do a ton. I mean, he looked good run blocking, but what are we doing right now when we're talking about like wide receivers run blocking and everything? He was good in that area, but I think in the passing game, he could take a step forward too. So I do think this group can continue to improve. It's a tough matchup to be sure, but I mean, like you said, they set the bar pretty low last week. I think you're going to see a slightly better performance in week two.
We're in this era of football coverage where Monday morning people start dropping the All-22 and people usually point out, hey, look at this receiver. He was open a lot. And for the Patriots, it was Demario Pop Douglas and Jalen Polk. It seemed like they were open quite a bit. Even Tyquan Thornton. I think sometimes it's hard to do that because, as a quarterback, when you have a tough pass rush, you don't always have time to look downfield. And I think Jacoby Brissett was under so much pressure that maybe he wasn't always looking downfield, but, he could probably do a little bit better too in terms of hitting some of these open guys. So I agree with you. I think the arrow should be pointing out because I don't think you can go backwards from no receiver hitting 30 receiving yards. But I do think Demario Douglas will turn into be a good receiver, and I believe Jalen Polk will as well. I think like by the end of the day, he's going to be a decent, receiver in the NFL. Maybe it's next year or the year after, but I think those two guys are something you can build off of. And talk about answering questions. I mean, hey, everyone is clamoring for Brandon Ayuk or T. Higgins to come to the Patriots, and the only way the Patriots receivers are going to get us to shut up is to like do something. So maybe we'll see it against Seattle. Now, Chris, final question for you is really about the prediction. I think I went into this season saying this is going to be a loss for the Patriots. I'm sort of like up in the air right now. Like, what do you think happens here? Like, what's your prediction?
I think it's going to be a field goal fest. I think we're going to see a lot of field goals in this game. Ultimately, I think Seattle is still going to win, which I would have predicted to start the year. And even after last week, there's some reevaluating, but I'm still going Seattle here. I'll go 16-13.
I, I was literally just going to say 16-13 Seattle, so I will change. I will go. How about even lower scoring? How about 13-10? Complete just utter barn burner.
Seattle?
Seattle. I'm gonna lean towards Seattle. I think the Patriots honestly will be competitive in this game. I think they should. Your home opener, they're gonna be jacked. Malcolm Butler's gonna ring the bell, which is pretty hilarious. I think they'll give it a good go. I have too many questions about the offense and the offense efficiency with the pass game before I'm gonna pick them over a team that has a little bit more talent.
Agreed. In week one, it felt like everything broke their way. Inevitably, something's not going to in week two. So I think we're both on Seattle here. But all right, guys, that's our pod. Thanks for following along, and we'll catch you further on down the trail.